Hello everyone, and welcome to my BNB CBS Gossip 24 channel. Steffy's switch, Katie's questions, Dylan's golden opportunity unfolds as a still consequential ripple through the lives of everyone involved, beginning with Steffy Forrester's decisive change of plans and radiating outward into questions of trust, boundaries, responsibility, and unanticipated chances, all woven together by the connective towel of family fidelity and conservative stopgap. Because Steffy is no way one to vacillate when duty calls, and this time is no different, as she makes an unforeseen switch and takes Ivy Forrester's place on the San Francisco trip, a move that appears practical on the face but carries with it a waterfall of logistical and emotional consequences, especially when it comes to juggling fatherhood, work, and the constant drive and pull of Forrester family scores. And although Steffy is confident in her decision, the reality of arranging care for Hayes Finnegan incontinently complicates matters, forcing her to suppose presto and trust someone outside her usual inner circle, which is where Dylan suddenly comes into the picture, because in the Forrester design office Dylan is formerly doing her stylish to project calm and consolation, particularly toward Electra Forrester, who's still unsettled after the now ignominious funk regale drama that hovered to blow minor pressures into commodity much larger, and Dylan, eager to prove herself as dependable and considerate, insists there's nothing left to worry about, emphasizing that the issue has been addressed, resolved, and put forcefully in the history, while also making it clear that Electra can count on her to maintain applicable distance from Will Spencer, especially during the time Electra will be down on business, a pledge that Dylan delivers with sincerity, apprehensive that perception matters just as important as intent in a family as connected and observant as the Forresters and Spencers. And while Electra listens, conservative but appreciative, Dylan's asseveration reflects her growing understanding of the delicate social ecosystem she has stepped into, one where indeed small mistakes can echo loudly, yet she also hopes her amenability to admire boundaries will earn her trust and stability, both tête-à-tête and professionally, a stopgap that becomes indeed more significant as her own fiscal situation looms still in the background, pushing her to seize any occasion that might offer indeed temporary relief. And as Dylan works to steady Electra's jitters, the focus shifts to the Sand House, where Katie Logan Spencer continues her discussion with Will, a discussion that at first seems casual but gradationally deepens as Katie's instincts as a mama and a Logan edge, egging her to ask further pointed questions about Dylan, her circumstances, and Will's involvement, because Katie can smell when commodity has shifted in her son's emotional route. And although Will frames his conduct as simple kindness, explaining that he wanted to help Electra's friend during a rough patch, Katie hears the subtle undertones that suggest Dylan may be getting further than just a cause or a courtesy, maybe indeed a friend in her own right, and this consummation gives Katie pause, not because she disapproves of compassion, but because she understands how snappily blurred lines can lead to misconstructions, especially when Electra's passions are involved, so Katie listens precisely, her questions concentrated with concern rather than blameworthiness, probing just enough to clarify the situation without pushing Will into guard, and as the discussion unfolds, Katie reminds Will how important Electra means to him, gently advising him about the significance of maintaining clear boundaries and icing that Electra feels comfortable and secure, indeed when she's down, because Katie has seen too numerous situations unravel when good intentions weren't paired with thoughtful communication. And yet, despite her caution, Katie remains incontrovertibly proud of Will for stepping up and helping someone in need, fating that his empathy and sense of responsibility are traits worth nurturing, not suppressing, which is why her tone no way becomes harsh or hypercritical, rather balancing guidance with protestation, and it's indeed possible, as the discussion continues and Katie considers Dylan's situation more virtually, that she begins to wonder if there might be a way to help. Beyond advice, maybe by pitching in and chancing a place for Dylan at Logan, knowing that fresh income could make a meaningful difference and that offering support through honest work aligns with the Logan family's values, though Katie also understands that such an offer would need to be handled delicately to avoid creating farther complications or comprehensions of favoritism, and while these conversations poach at the Sand House, the narrative circles back to Steffy, whose unforeseen switch to take Ivy's place in San Francisco has left her scrabbling to break the immediate problem of childcare, because although she trusts her usual support system, the timing creates a babysitting bind that requires inflexibility, and Hayes Finnegan, comfortable and at ease around Dylan, becomes the deciding factor, as Steffy considers the possibility that Dylan could watch him for a bit, at least until John Finnegan can take over, a temporary arrangement that would profit everyone involved, offering Steffy peace of mind, furnishing Dylan with important required cash, and icing Hayes' remains with someone he knows and likes, and this possibility represents Dylan's golden occasion, not just financially but symbolically, because being entrusted with Hayes is a sign of confidence and acceptance within the Forrester-Finnegan route. Commodity Dylan doesn't take smoothly, especially as she's formerly feeling the pressure to prove herself secure and able, and as fate would have it, another temporary job occasion also pops up around the same time, buttressing the theme that Dylan is at a crossroads where short-term chances could pave the way for longer-term stability, and though these openings may not offer permanence, they give instigation, a chance for Dylan to recapture footing and demonstrate trustability, which becomes decreasingly important as her presence intertwines more deeply with Will's life, because anyhow of individual intentions, Dylan and Will are fated to end up babysitting Hayes together on Tuesday's show, an outgrowth that Monday's occasion precisely sets the stage for, layering exchanges, pledges, and logistical opinions that channel naturally toward that participated responsibility, and this impending script adds another subcast of complexity, as Katie's earlier questions and warnings echo in the background, emphasizing how indeed innocent moments can be interpreted through the lens of being connections and prospects, and meanwhile Ivy, displaced from the San Francisco trip by Steffy Switch, might offer consolation of her own, promising to keep an eye on Dylan while Electra is down with Steffy, a gesture that suggests conservative goodwill and an acknowledgement that Dylan's presence is now a combined concern, not just a particular one, and taken together, these intertwined stories paint a picture of transition and testing, where characters are asked to acclimatize snappily, trust precisely, and balance compassion with caution, because Steffy's decisive nature propels the plot forward. Katie's thoughtful questions base it in emotional literalism, and Dylan's unforeseen job openings fit a note of stopgap tempered by query, all within a single, non-stop inflow of events that remind everyone involved that indeed temporary switches can have lasting goods, especially in a world where family, fidelity, and perception are always in play, and as the days unfold, each character's choices, from Steffy's realistic trust to Katie's measured guidance to Dylan's humorless pledges, contribute to a delicate equilibrium that could fluently tip if mistakes do, yet for now, there's a sense of conservative sanguinity, a belief that with clear boundaries, open communication, and a amenability to help without overpassing, these challenges can be navigated successfully, indeed as the stage is set for the ineluctable moments of pressure, reflection, and growth that will follow, making Steffy switch further than a logistical change, Katie's questions further than motherly curiosity, and Dylan's golden occasion more than just a temporary job, but rather connected way in an ongoing story about chancing one's place, earning trust, and learning how to watch for others without losing oneself in the process. Steffy Switch, Katie's questions, Dylan's golden opportunity. Steffy Forrester will make a switch while Katie Logan Spencer has further questions. Dylan also has an unforeseen job occasion coming up, albeit a temporary bone. In the Forrester design office, Dylan will try to move Electra Forrester that there's nothing to fret over. Now that they've addressed the Funk Regale drama, Dylan will contend Electra can count on her to keep her distance from Will Spencer, especially while Electra's down on business. Next, B&B spoilers say Katie will continue her discussion with Will at the Sandhouse. There'll be further questions about Dylan, so Katie may smell that Will's overgrown near to her. Will formally refocused out that he wanted to help Electra's friend, but Katie may suppose it sounds like Dylan is getting his friend, too. Katie knows how important Electra means to Will, so she might advise him about maintaining boundaries and making sure Electra feels comfortable with all this. That said, Katie will remain proud of Will for stepping up and helping someone in need. It's indeed possible Katie will want to pitch in and find a place for Dylan at Logan since she could use the income. In the meantime, another temporary job occasion will pop up for Dylan. Since Steffy will make an unforeseen switch and take Ivy Forrester's spot on the San Francisco trip, that might put her in a babysitting bind. Hayes Finnegan is comfortable with Dylan, who could use whatever cash Steffy might offer her to watch him for a bit, at least until John Finnegan can take over. Anyhow, Dylan and Will are going to end up babysitting Hayes on Tuesday's show, so Monday's occasion may set the stage for that. As for Ivy, she might promise to keep an eye on Dylan while Electra's in San Francisco with Steffy. As the ripples from Steffy's switch continue to spread, the emotional swings come harder to ignore, especially for Dylan, who finds herself standing at the crossroad of occasion and scrutiny, stopgap and vacillation, because while the unforeseen babysitting arrangement and temporary job prospects promise immediate relief, they also place her exactly under the vigilant eyes of multiple families whose histories are concentrated with implied rules and once dolor, and Dylan is acutely apprehensive that every move she makes now will be interpreted, measured, and flashed back, which is why she approaches the coming phase with careful intention, reminding herself that thickness, translucency, and respect are the only currencies that truly matter in a world like this. In the Forrester design office, the atmosphere subtly shifts. Formerly Steffi's trip plans come common knowledge, as sidekicks brood about the San Francisco trip and Ivy's unanticipated sidelining, and while Steffi herself remains focused and composed, there's an unmistakable sense that she's juggling far further than sketches and schedules, because fatherhood no way pauses for business, and the reality of leaving Hayes, indeed temporarily, weighs on her further than she lets on, yet. Steffi channels that concern into decisive action, arranging details fleetly and efficiently, and when she approaches Dylan about watching Hayes for a short window, her tone is calm but sapient, making it clear that this is both an offer and a test of trust, one that Dylan accepts with gratefulness and a quiet determination to exceed prospects, knowing that this moment could review how she's seen by the Forresters moving forward. Meanwhile, Electra prepares for her own departure with a blend of expectation and apprehension, because while the business trip represents growth and responsibility, it also means stepping down from familiar emotional anchors, including Will, whose presence has been a steady comfort, and though Dylan's solace about maintaining distance reverberate logically, Electra can't entirely silence the small voice of mistrustfulness that prodigies how dynamics might shift in her absence, yet she chooses to believe in the pledges made, reminding herself that trust isn't proven by constant alert but by giving people the space to recognize their word, and Ivy's pledge to keep an eye on effects offers a fresh subcast of comfort, suggesting that Electra isn't leaving chaos before but rather a network of responsibility, one that Dylan understands she's now a part of. At the Sandhouse, Katie's studies loiter long after her discussion with Will ends, because while she's proud of the compassion he's shown, she also recognizes the familiar patterns that frequently antecede emotional snares, and Katie, having lived through her own share of complicated connections, knows that good intentions can blur into deeper passions before anyone realizes its passing, which is why she remains still watchful, not by interrogating Will further, but by observing how situations unfold, ready to step in with guidance if necessary, yet inversely set to trust her son's judgment, because part of being a parent is learning when to advise and when to allow experience to educate its own assignments. Will, for his part, feels the weight of those prospects indeed if they aren't explicitly stated, and as he prepares for the forthcoming babysitting arrangement with Dylan, he reflects on Katie's words, reminding himself that his primary provocation has always been to help, not to complicate, and though he enjoys Dylan's easygoing nature and appreciates her adaptability, he's careful to frame their relations within the boundaries he's promised to uphold, determined not to betray Electra's trust, especially now when she's down fastening on work, and this internal resoluteness shapes his jest, making him more aware, more deliberate, indeed as circumstances push them into participated liabilities that naturally foster closeness. The day Dylan officially begins watching Hayes arrives with a mix of jitters and sanguinity, because while she's comfortable around children and authentically fond of Hayes, she knows that Steffi's prospects are high, and she wants to prove herself able of handling not just the practical aspects of childcare, but the emotional responsibility that comes with it, and from the moment Hayes runs toward her with undressed enthusiasm, calling her name and lugging at her hand, Dylan feels a swell of confidence, realizing that trust, formerly given, can be nurtured through presence and tolerance, and as she settles into the routine of snacks, playtime, and gentle consolation, she finds herself shortly forgetting the fiscal stress and social pressure that have dominated her studies, replaced rather by a sense of purpose that feels grounding and real. When Will arrives to help, the dynamic is unexpectedly natural, as both of them concentrate on Hayes, coordinating painlessly, laughing at his capers, and navigating minor mishaps with cooperation that feels spontaneous rather than forced, and however there are moments of participated recreation and quiet understanding, Will remains conscious of maintaining applicable distance, keeping relations light and centered around Hayes, while Dylan glasses that restraint, thankful for the clarity it provides, because nebulosity would only invite misreading, and in these small, ordinary moments, both of them begin to see how cooperation, rather than chemistry, can be the foundation of commodity positive without crossing lines. Back in San Francisco, Steffi throws herself into work, but indeed amid meetings and donations, her studies sometimes drift back to Hayes, egging her to check in, and each update she receives reassures her that she made the right choice, as Dylan's alertness and Will's support produce a stable terrain, and this consolation allows Steffi to completely engage with the business at hand, strengthening her position and buttressing her belief that rigidity is one of her topmost strengths, both as a leader and as a mama. Katie, upon learning that Dylan and Will are babysitting together, feels a flicker of concern, but she tempers it with trust, reminding herself of the exchanges she's formerly had and the values she's inseminated, and rather of intermediating precociously, she chooses to observe from a distance, ready to offer guidance if signs of discomfort or confusion crop, but also open to the possibility that this arrangement might simply be an illustration of community stepping up when demanded. A memorial that not every participated moment leads to complication, indeed in families as intertwined as theirs. As the days progress, Dylan's temporary job openings begin to lap, forcing her to juggle schedules and liabilities with careful perfection, and while the workload is demanding, it also brings a sense of confirmation, because each completed task, each appreciative response, reinforces the idea that she's able of rebuilding stability one step at a time, and this instigation energizes her confidence, encouraging her to fantasize a future where she's no longer just surviving on short-term fixes, but laboriously working toward commodity more secure, indeed if the path there remains uncertain. Electra, checking in from hence, senses subtle shifts through tone and timing rather than words, but she chooses not to jump to conclusions, reminding herself that absence can magnify precariousness, and rather focuses on her work, trusting that the foundation she's erected with Will and the assurances Dylan has given will hold, and Ivy's occasional updates serve as a grounding presence, buttressing the idea that nothing is twisting out of control, that life is simply moving forward in complex but manageable ways. By the time Steffi returns from San Francisco, the temporary arrangements have left a lasting print, because what began as a practical result has evolved into a demonstration of trust, cooperation, and collective respect, and Steffi, observing the ease with which Hayes interacts with Dylan and the responsible manner in which Will conducts himself, feels a quiet satisfaction, fating that her switch, however sudden, set in stir a series of events that revealed strengths she hadn't completely conceded ahead, both in herself and in those around her. Katie, too, reflects on the unfolding situation with a blend of pride and caution, admitting that while questions and boundaries remain essential, growth frequently emerges from navigating query rather than avoiding it, and she remains ready to support, guide, or intermediate as demanded, but also open to the possibility that Dylan's presence might eventually enrich rather than disrupt the lives she touches, handed that everyone continues to communicate actually and admire the lines that cover trust. For Dylan, the experience marks a turning point, because being entrusted with responsibility, earning income through honest work, and navigating complex connections without misstep each contribute to a renewed sense of tone worth, and while she knows that these openings are temporary, the confidence they inseminate feels enduring, motivating her to keep moving forward with intention and integrity, determined to recognize the trust she's been given and to prove that alternate chances, when met with trouble and modesty, can lead to meaningful change. As these stories meet, Steffi's switch, Katie's questions, and Dylan's golden openings reveal themselves as connected vestments in a larger narrative about balance, trust, and the courage to acclimatize, showing that indeed temporary opinions can open doors to growth, understanding, and unanticipated connection, and while challenges really lie ahead, the route laid during these moments suggests that with care, communication, and a amenability to step up when demanded, each character is better equipped to face whatever comes next, not as insulated individualities, but as part of a complicated, evolving family dynamic that continues to shape and review them all. In the quiet aftermath of Steffi's return, the household rhythms begin to settle, but the emotional echoes of the past few days linger just beneath the surface, especially for those who were most closely involved, because while the immediate needs have been met and no lines were visibly crossed, the experience has subtly reshaped perspectives, leaving each character with new insights they can't easily dismiss. Steffy, unpacking her bags and resuming her role at Forrester, finds herself reflecting on how seamlessly Dylan stepped into a position of trust, and though she maintains her usual guarded composure, there's an unspoken acknowledgement that reliability can come from unexpected places, a realization that may influence future decisions more than she's ready to admit out loud. Will, returning to his own routine, carries with him a heightened awareness of responsibility, not just toward Electra, but toward the broader web of relationships he's a part of, because babysitting Hayes alongside Dylan forced him to confront how easily closeness can grow out of shared obligations, and rather than alarming him, that awareness sharpens his resolve to act with intention, to choose transparency over assumption, and to keep his priorities clear even when circumstances encourage. Emotional shortcuts. Katie notices these shifts almost instinctively, sensing an